historian with a master's in history. So, Timothy, welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Of course. Tomorrow we're going to do an in-depth discussion so we can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
So you guys check that out tomorrow. But for now, we're going to get started with the appraisal. We also have Adam here. Welcome, Adam.
Hi, it's great.
And you're going to give me some...
My last name is Weintraub.
Yes. I had a hard time before the show, so thank you, Adam. So what did you bring for us today?
Well, I've always called it the bit of evil. It's her grandmother, I believe, purchased this. It was in a box at an auction. Obviously wasn't the thing she had in mind when she was bidding
Yeah.
for the box. And thought it was something that belonged in an attorney's office, which is how it got to my friend Terry. So we practiced law together. We've been best friends since high school. But his wife Teresa wouldn't have it. He brought it to the office for a while, so I had been trying to buy this thing for a couple of years. And finally, one day, after he lost the case, it appeared in my office.
Oh, that's great. What a good story. Well, out of all the submissions we got, I like really unique pieces. So this is probably one of my favorites just because it's so different. So if we can get some really good shots, that would be really great. But we can see it's got this really great claw on the bottom, which is really unique. And what looks to be a demon, Lucifer possibly. And at the top we have a little opening. And now Timothy is going to tell us a little bit about this. So Timothy, can you tell us some information about this really unique object?
Okay. First of all, it's a cast bronze piece. It's got nice patina. It's got good edge on it. The oddity is you've got a bust of a horned figure with a beard, and then sitting on what? And with all the things that we do, we usually try to track down, going from what does it look like to what its actual purpose is. So it was originally produced around 1870. It's a French piece, and the French were very good at bronze casting at the time. A lot of statuary came out of there. And it is essentially a horned figure on a foot. Now, as to its purpose, it's got the little hatch, as you said, and the tip of it. It was originally either sitting on a counter in a cigar store, or if you went to a gentleman's club. In those days, men would have their own private club, and in England, there's still the men's clubs. In the men's clubs, what do? They have their whiskey, and they have their cigars. At the time this was produced, cigars were very difficult to light. They were always a tougher thing, that the big rolled up, so it needed a good strong flame. The matches of the day, which were originally created in the earlier part of the century, were sticks with phosphorus on the end. The original ones were called Congraves. The man named Congrave himself on fire. The next one produced were called Lucifers because of the fire element. It was an improved version. It would strike on a striker that was treated with phosphorus, which you'd strike the two things. So this, if you're constantly having people light their cigars, and I guess cigars, having never smoked one, need continually relight.
Yeah.
So a wick would be passed through the tunnel into here, and you'd load it up with kerosene. So you'd light the end of it, and it could be on the counter, and you could take and light your cigar. So in a lawyer's office,
It's actually kind of fitting, right?
Maybe I'll start.
now, as to how much is it worth? Smoking, for the most part, is sort of forbidden in most workplaces now. So we kind of go, who would want to buy a similar thing? That you could say that there's a new trend in smoking, but it's no longer tobacco. And a lot of those shops would probably be interested, or your little club. And in LA, California now has places where you can go and light up. So, this could possibly...
That's fantastic. It's true. So true.
And so the market is kind of nice on it.
It is.
I went, the current asking price for one of these is $1,500.
Wow. Oh,
So, light the fire.
I guess you got the last laugh on that one.
It's such an interesting piece. I really don't have any plans to sell it, so it's just going to be sitting in my office for a while longer. But it's
Conversation
just wonderful to know.
started.
I had no idea what it was. I had thought it was an incense burner. Wasn't able to track down the chicken foot and the goat head. I couldn't find anything on that in any sort of history or mythology. I'm just thrilled to know what it is.
With the walk around chasing nymph fluids. But why the chicken foot? This was produced in two different models. The other version of this is a blackamoor, a black man with a slave collar. And which is probably not a hot topic right now, but that would be the other form.
Okay.
And why that, I don't know. Maybe it's the fact that light my cigarette, or,
Oh, I see what you mean, yeah.
A
Yeah.
slave to take and serve the master.
Gotcha.
So, but that's
Gotcha. But
you
it's
so much.
very,
It's wonderful.
it is. And Adam, if you ever want someone to take it off your hands, I will gladly take this off your hands for you. So thank you so much for coming, and it's
It's
fantastic.
wonderful to know that the service is available.
Yay!
oh, you're welcome.
All right. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right
Love
back.
getting challenging, interesting pieces.
The good of evil now has a name.
Yes, the video does now have a name. So we'll be right back, guys, with our next one. Thanks. Again, welcome back, and if you're just now tuning in, we are at the Vintage Tulsa Show doing live appraisal. I'm really excited because we have some where you got these and the story behind it.
This was from the Chicago area. My grandparents, my mom's mom and dad, loved to go to art shows and auctions, and so I acquired it from my mom when she passed away.
Oh, okay. From your mom? Awesome. All right, great. It's a beautiful piece. Timothy, what can you tell us about it?
As the artist, Charles Francis Brown, born in 1859, died in 1920. He started off in Natick, Massachusetts, and the family was mercantile, but he didn't really want to get into the mercantile business and decided he'd much rather go into art. Started off as a lithographer, and he studied at the Boston Museum of Arts. All of this has taken several sources to pull together, to string together his life. Then he moved to the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, where he studied under Thomas Eakins, who was one of the iconic painters, American painters of the 19th century. Then went to Paris. With all artists of that day, Paris was a place to go and fine-tune. When he arrived there were two approaches to painting. Well, there was the academy approach, where everybody sat in an academy and you drew plaster statues until you got good enough to draw real people.
Yeah.
But at that point, painting was now being more open. You didn't have to take and just work off of paint that you mixed in batches and held in jars. You could now get tube paint. It was at the point where paints came into tubes, and painters now moved out into the country and painted plein air right there on scene. So they would carry their tubes. One of the means that helped them go out there and paint, they would prepare panels, and this is on panel, and they'd become in square sections. You could carry a stack of panels, whereas a canvas stretch would be limited.
It's a little more obtuse,
and you could carry a whole stack of them.
Yeah.
And they would work out there and spend the day. The idea was to try to capture one point of the day and do the entire scene in one sailing. So they would do a quicker approach to painting, quick, brisk dabs and things like that at that point. The more academic, subdued one was Barbizon. Barbizon felt like the poetry of the countryside. They would take and be slightly more conservative. They used more blacks and earth tones in their palette. But at the same time, along came the Impressionists. They brightened up and used more high key tones so that the colors would be brighter, sharper, and light would be more fragmented. The whole idea is you're capturing light not by layers of shadow, chiaroscuro lights to dark. They would break up the light palette.
Yeah.
So our artist, Brown, he was adhered primarily toward the more conservative approach. So he brought that approach back to the United States, and he was then hired to go to the Chicago Columbian Exhibition in 1892. It was supposed to be 1892, but it took so long to build it. It ended up in 1893. But it was celebrating the bicentennial of America, Columbia coming to America.
Which you had said earlier makes sense, where, in Chicago.
Right.
Yeah.
So he painted. They had a lot of arenas and areas, buildings dedicated to women's building, to children's building, and they would hire a lot of artists to come in. The Columbian Exhibition was a milestone in its own way. It was called the White City. It was done over... we need to cut.
So just give us 1 second. Okay.
be an exhibition. He worked there and liked Chicago so much that he stayed on as an instructor at the Chicago Institute of Art.
Oh, wow.
And what touches me is my grandfather attended the same school at the same time.
Oh, it's
so he could have been my grandfather's professor.
Oh, that's so great. Oh, my goodness.
And
neat.
that is.
Small world, right?
It is. It's amazing. And he stayed there. He really became integral to the art community of that era. He was involved in publications. He belonged to associations and guilds and everything else. So he was really incremental in developing the art of that era. So the next step is, how did he get to our painting, which was painted in Carmel, California? 1915. They opened up in San Francisco. They did the Pan America exhibition, and he was hired to come in and supervise the building of the American or U.S. wing of that exhibition. So at that exhibition were a number of pure impressionistic painters, and so up to that point he had been very conservative, low-key palettes, more Barbizon approach. There, about half of the art in the building was California Impressionists. California Impressionists were out to the coastline, painting San Francisco, and they most likely would said, if you want to paint something, you got to go to Point.
Right?
And so the influence is suddenly he's got a higher key palette, and he's now dropped some of the Barbizon tendencies. He still had black in here.
Yeah.
Barbizon had black. Impressionist black went off of the palette, and they did use some of it. So you have him kind of loosening up. This is,
I was going to say, this is definitely a little looser, though. You can get that feeling, and you get the feeling of the fast painting technique.
Quick, fast. He would have been on this coastline, painting on bowl era. He is well known. He's highly collected. Regional painters are now starting to come out of the back pages of art. And a Chicago artist who painted a California plein air, impressionistic style piece. They're currently going for anywhere between $4,000 to $8,000 at a good auction. So if you got in the right auction, a California auction, or an auction featuring California plein air style paintings, and with the Chicago tendency or tie, it could do quite well.
That's fantastic. I had a question. Can we turn it over? I kind of wanted to look at the back and just see here. For our audience, this is the original frame, correct? And I just wanted to point out for our viewers that may not know, that's kind of what you can expect, right?
Right. This is what you should see. The aging of the paper is gone kind of dry. What's unusual is for a painting to have the dust catch. But what's that done is kept the painting cleaner, no air, no dust, any of that under glass. So it's kept it much more pristine.
Yeah.
And it hasn't picked any of that air. In the next painting, what happens when it's unblack.
Yeah.
So when we go looking, we like to see the back.
That's why I wanted to point that out. Seeing the back is always important, and I always try to look to see what kind of the back looks like, because it'll tell you a lot about the piece.
Right. What the surface it's on, the age, if it's wood, if it's canvas, has a canvas age, what type of canvas, the type of canvas, the weave of it will tell you if it's Irish canvas, Italian canvas, or where it originated from. The style of the stretchers. Commercial stretchers have a certain look. Handmade stretchers are rough wood, cut on miter, and then keyed or somehow blocked together. So, did the artist make his own stretchers? Was he well off enough to take and buy commercial stretchers? But the panel really fits in with that walk into the field and paint idea.
It's so great. And I'm an artist, and I have a hard time painting fast. So for me, when I look at this, I think, oh my gosh, that's so awesome. It's so well done to be able to do that so quickly. It's a talent.
Yeah, to develop that loose, quick, lay it on.
The movement in it, it really is fantastic. Barbara, thank you.
auction though. Because
Oh, okay.
I don't think this guy was from Chicago.
No, we're definitely out of the area.
Yeah, yeah. Well, same backstory as far as your mother, correct?
Her parents.
Her parents, yes.
Grandparents.
So if they were attending art auctions, that's a good
that area.
possibility. That Chicago was a hub of art. It had its own community. It had its own guilds and everything. And so what we have is, again, on panel, from about the same time period. This is now painted in France. And the artist, on here it says E. de Moy, but the E stands for Pierre Emmanuel de Moy, 1847 to 1916. I just saw it today, so what I've got is just a quick moment in trying to track him down. I have no real true background, but he did train in France, and he studied at the École des Beaux-Arts, and broken out of. Artists could go to Julian, Jerome, or Beaux-Arts and get art training, but it wasn't as formal. That was more you paint and then we all look at it, or more develop the skills without so much hardcore academic. He paints in, again, a quick, fast brushstroke, laying right on the surface of the painting without laying down. Early canvases are oftentimes you'd lay like a ground and build up color over months. And oil paint takes up to 6 months time to dry.
Yes.
A painter, oh darn, I can't paint on it until it's set. But the fact that they were laying it down so quick, they could go out and do it. They said he tends to be more Barbizon, but in looking at the painting, I see hardly any touches of black in there, just a little bit through the surface.
It's very bright.
Yeah, but right now, because it hasn't been under glass and the back hasn't been sealed up.
Do you want to show the back?
Yeah, you can see the back portion of it. And we see nice age. The wood has been around since the turn of the century. These two have been together.
Oh,
For well over 100 years.
which is so beautiful. To me, it's just beautiful. I mean, just seeing the original nails in here, I think that's really neat.
I do too.
But you touched on something that I think is very important, which is because it's not covered in glass, it has affected the painting.
Right. The color isn't nearly as bright as it should be. Just being out in the air for so long, it's got a lot of just like surface dirt, and it really could stand a good cleaning. The yellows would come up, the whites would come up, this blue would just kind of leak off the page, the board.
So we had talked about restoration a little bit ago. So again, this is a great example of how just a light cleaning could really enhance the value, correct?
But you would need somebody who's really skilled at it. You'd get too aggressive, it has no varnishes over it. So you're touching right into the painting, which would went straight on the board.
Yeah.
So
Very, very careful.
not as he's produced, I've seen when I started looking today, there's like over 630 of his paintings that have hit the market. So the supply, maybe painting, the auction results as of August of last year were anywhere between 1,100 and 2,000 for the painting. So
Very good. Hey, that's not bad.
between the two, you did quite well.
Yeah.
No kidding. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Well, thank you so much. Beautiful pieces.
I was hoping to come here and actually see original art. So thank you. You made
Yes.
it worthwhile.
Barbara, thank you again so much. Timothy, thank you also. We're going to wrap up the appraisals for today, but we will be back tomorrow with Timothy again. We're actually going to do an interview with Timothy and get to know him a little bit better. And we'll be back again, like I said, doing more live appraisals. So